Assalamu alaikum, everybody, and a very warm welcome to the introduction episode of the Arabic with Sam podcast. Man, I'm so pumped for this, for you guys to be here. You guys are listening to the first ever episode. I think, to be honest, in my journey creating videos and writing blogs and stuff, I think the podcast is the thing that I've looked forward to more than anything. I think it just when people are recording podcasts, just looks like they're so chilled out. It means that you can speak a bit slower. You've not got the pressure of the camera and stuff. So I'm pumped anyway. So this is the introduction episode, as I say. And firstly, there's no shout out to any sponsors because there's probably 4 people listening. But there is a huge shout out to those of you who are listening because you guys are the best. And the attention from you guys and you guys listening to the podcast, it genuinely means the world to me. So in this introduction episode, all we're going to do is talk about what on earth this podcast is, a little bit about who it's for, and we're going to talk a bit briefly about who I am as well, in case any of you haven't met me yet. So what is this podcast? I mean, obviously, it's about learning Arabic, of course, but really the episodes are going to be between sort of 20 to 30 minutes long, and they are going to be lessons. They're going to be kind of stand-alone lessons. So if you listen to these podcasts and you're learning Arabic from these lessons for a couple of weeks, and then you go on holiday or something, or I don't know, you lose your phone or something, or you forget to download the episodes, and you don't listen for 2 weeks, and you come back, the lessons are going to be absolutely standalone. Like, you don't need to go back to the beginning and then listen again. It's not like a course. It's not kind of accumulative. They're just standalone, individual, Arabic language bites. We might cover a topic or a concept of grammar or something like that. So that's what the majority of the episodes will be. Like at the moment, the episodes are going to be weekly. Just starting out, they're going to be weekly. Firstly, because we're just getting started. And as I get used to podcasting and creating these episodes a little bit more, I'll get some practice whilst there's not the pressure to do it every single day. But then eventually I want to do it daily. My objective is literally 7 days a week, same time every single day. We'll even do them live, hopefully, eventually. But at the moment, they're just going to be weekly. Yes, we're going to have these weekly lessons. But the objective, as I say, is to go towards doing them every single day. And on the weekends, I'd like to have some guests. We'll have some guests. We'll do a bit longer episodes because on the weekends, you're probably not going to listen to this on your commute into work or something like that. You've probably got a little bit more downtime. So we're going to have some guests so that I can, just talk to them about their Arabic language learning journey, how they learned, what worked for them, what didn't, where they've travelled to, how they've found learning Arabic. And one of the guests that I already have lined up for you guys actually is one of my students called Chris. So that'd be quite nice to give you guys, a little bit of an insight to actually one of my students and actually hear from one of my students personally. Good. Okay, so that's kind of the idea for the actual episodes themselves. We'll have lessons, we'll have some interviews, and so that I suppose that kind of means that the podcast is really best suited for adults. I suppose. It is for anybody. We're obviously not going to stop anyone and listen to it who wants to, but busy adults really is the main kind of people who I'm trying to serve here, because I think education for adults is particularly special because I think a lot of people, when they get to sort of 25 and onwards, say you're a dad and you're starting a family, you have kids, or you're working or something like that, like, a lot of the time people think that their opportunity for learning Arabic has passed them. But for children, people know that it hasn't passed them. Like when you're a child, you've got nothing but time, and you have parents who'll often invest in you and get a teacher for you and stuff like that. But for adults, I think a lot of the time people think that their opportunity has bypassed them. One, because they're busier, and then also because there's not as much time ahead of them, obviously. So I want to create these episodes if a length of time that can fit in and around your day. These 20 to 30 minute episodes. Obviously, you can listen to them when you're at the gym, or you can stick it on when you're in the car, or when you're just walking anywhere. You've got 20 minutes free on your lunch break or whatever. You can just listen to these episodes. Because obviously I think as well that supports language learning much better than like a 4-hour seminar. Language learning is done best little and often. It's much better for you to listen to these lessons for 20 minutes every day than to go to a 4-hour seminar on a Saturday. So it's just a good format for improving Arabic language learning, and especially for adults. Good. Okay, nice. There was something else I want to say about that, but I've forgotten it. So hopefully it'll come back to me. So good. Oh yeah. I was gonna say about about what kind of why I'm doing this anyway. Why am I teaching Arabic anyway, and what my specific objectives are for teaching Arabic. So, I obviously have a deep love for the Arabic language, and especially for it being an opportunity for uniting the Muslims, because because we have a long tradition in our ummah of non-Arabs learning the Arabic language. You know, if you look at the countries in the world that are considered Arab countries, all but maybe 3 or 4 of them used to not be Arabic speaking countries. Like, the people of those countries used to speak other languages. You know, rewind 2,000 years, Egypt did not speak Arabic. You know, rewind, 1,500 years, probably Iraq did not speak Arabic. So there are countries where people, entire nations, have learnt the Arabic language. And, and especially among our scholars, not surprisingly, there are scholars of hadith like Sheikh al-Albani, who was Albanian, not even an Arab, and the Muhaddith Bukhari, who was the most famous hadith collector in history, and non-Arab, he's from Bukhara, he's from modern day Uzbekistan. So you have these non-Arabs who get to a point of absolute mastery in the Arabic language. And it's possible if we incorporate it daily into our lives. It's probably not possible if all we're prepared to dedicate to it is once a week for a few hours just to get it out of the way. But if we fundamentally tie it into our lifestyle, we weave it into our daily routines, and you can do that with this podcast. So, that's why I'm so pumped. That's why I'm so excited about this podcast, because it's something that can really be incorporated into your daily life, the way that language learning is supposed to be, the way that children learn languages. The way children learn languages is because the language is weaved throughout everything they do throughout the day. So we can do that with this podcast, inshallah. So it's really exciting that you guys are on board for the very, very first episode, that you guys are listening to this. And, as I say, I appreciate you guys so much. So we'll move on to just a little bit about me. So most of you, if you're listening to this podcast, the introduction episode, you're probably familiar with some of the content I've put out before. But for those of you who don't know, I'm a YouTuber. And, I actually started my career online creating video tutorials for people to learn Somali. My wife is from Somalia, and after we got married, I sort of just started documenting my learning process. I started just documenting, bits of her language that I was learning, bits of her culture that I was having to adjust to and stuff like that. And, and that picked up steam quite a lot. That became quite popular. Quite a lot of people, now that channel has nearly 2 million views and nearly 20,000 subscribers as I'm recording this. That was pretty interesting. But all along, I've always wanted to be an Arabic teacher. Like my real deep love is for the Arabic language, and that the Sam of Somalia stuff, like my Somali language stuff on YouTube, almost came about by accident, really. But it did provide really good training for me to later carry forward an Arabic language message and an Arabic language learning journey for my students. So, I mean, those of you who don't know my background, I'm white British, both parents white British, working class white British. I grew up in Cornwall. Those of you guys who haven't visited Cornwall, firstly, you should come down and visit us, and we'll take good care of you down there, inshallah. But Cornwall, for those of you who don't know, is probably one of the most homogenous white places left in the UK, really. So I don't think I ever met a Muslim until I'd become a Muslim myself. And I remember when I was at college, I was studying studies of religions, and one of our assignments was, when we got home, to listen to some of the Quran on Quran Explorer. And I remember coming home, and I was quite studious back then. Like, I was this was before I became a Muslim. I found real happiness in sort of seeking knowledge, obviously secular knowledge. I wasn't Muslim back then. But I came home, so straight away up into my room to do my homework, open up this email, listen to some of the Quran, and obviously I didn't really know about what the Quran, how it was structured or anything. So coming from like a Western literary background, obviously books are read from start to finish. We have storybooks and novels and stuff you read from start to finish. Obviously the Quran isn't necessarily to be read like that, but I do believe that in Allah's wisdom in his book, there are signs for people in the way that they approach the book. So because from a Western tradition and a modern tradition, we approach books from front to back, there's a message for those people in the Quran when you approach the Quran from front to back. So I started listening to it, and obviously Surah Al-Baqarah is the second chapter of the Quran, and it takes about 3 hours to recite that. So I was in it for the long run, yeah. I'd clicked on this huge long track that I was going to listen to for ages. And as soon as I heard these sounds, as soon as I heard Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, I'd never heard the sound ha before in my life. I'd never heard ra before in my life. I'd never heard ayn and sad and dad and qaf in my life. And when I heard just the power and the melody of this Quran, I knew it would change everything for me. Like, I knew my life would be changed completely by it. as soon as I listened to it. And I remember listening to the whole of Surah Al-Baqarah, even trying to like move my lips to try to start reciting along with it and try to start learning the words. And I knew that the Arabic language was going to change a lot of my life, and I'd been interested in languages at that point. Like I'd learned Spanish, and I was kind of a language dabbler. I think you call people who sort of dabble a little bit in languages, but so I'd kind of done some self study for Chinese. I'd self study a little bit of Japanese, self study a bit of Portuguese, and other languages too. And so I was kind of into language learning anyway, but with Arabic, it just wasn't worth risking self studying, like like I knew that I wanted to have real mastery over this language, and I know that when you self study, there are a lot of things that can get in the way of it. You can lose motivation, or you're not really being held accountable properly, or or you get distracted by something else, or you don't really keep up the consistency that you need to with language learning. And it was fine for me to risk that with Chinese or with Spanish because the stakes weren't so high. But I knew that the stakes were going to be so high if I didn't dedicate myself to learning Arabic. So I applied to do my degree in the Arabic language. Previously, I was going to study Chinese and English literature or something like that. And so I was accepted at a university called SOAS, the School of Oriental and African Studies. I think it's where James Bond went in the James Bond movies, or James Bond books. But anyway, so but it is here in the UK. I think it is probably the most prestigious Arabic language course that you can do in the UK. I think up there with Oxford. Like at Oxford University, you can study Arabic, but SOAS shares lecturers and resources and everything with Oxford. So I think it's the same level really. Um, so it's pretty high level, it's pretty high level Arabic language learning, alhamdulillah. And throughout that degree, I had the opportunity to go to Palestine in my third year. So I went to Palestine for an entire year and studied at a university called Jami'atul Najah. I studied there with a brother called Mondour, actually. Hopefully I'll get him as a guest on the podcast, inshallah. So I studied Arabic grammar and Arabic literature under the lecturers at the university there. And and then when I came back, that was obviously when I graduated, and I always knew that I wanted to be an Arabic teacher. Like I think even perhaps a couple of weeks into my university course, I knew I wanted to teach this. Like I knew I wanted to teach it rather than be an interpreter or a translator or or a news reporter or whatever. I think I knew I was inclined to teaching, just because I have a deep love for helping people, really, and for and for helping people learn something. Um, I think that comes out. I think that's quite clear in my websites and stuff as well. When I offer my services and when I even talk about my curriculum, like I've always made it an effort to make sure students know that I'm on the end of the phone to help them. So I think I was just inclined to teaching. Like I knew I wanted to teach. So when I graduated and I got married, I started working as a primary school teacher, and that didn't really work out. Like those of you who are based in the UK, you probably know that our education system has some issues and teachers have some pressures. In terms of just ridiculous workload and red tape that comes with, that comes with being a teacher in this country. So I left in the end, but and then after that, I knew that I just needed to teach Arabic. So I started looking for just students. I'd go and tutor people's kids for £15 an hour, £20 an hour, or whatever I could get. This was in London, and so it went on like that for a little while, and I kind of realised that there was an opportunity to create my own curriculum. I knew that I had the work ethic, I knew that I had the drive and the passion to create my own curriculum, and I knew that I had these students who were ready for me to practice it on them, because whilst there are already phenomenal curriculums out there, like the Medina book series and the Gateway series and the Al-Arabiya Bayna Yadayk series, they're all phenomenal books. Like I know phenomenal teachers and students of the Arabic language who learn through those books. But there is room for more, and there is certainly room for teachers who are prepared to dedicate their time to students and helping students understand. So I've put maybe 200 students through my curriculum now. Because I've been doing this for about 3 years now since I left teaching, and the curriculum's available on my website. By the way, it's Arabic in 60 steps, and you can see it on my website arabicwithsam.com. Yeah, so that's kind of where I am now, right? Like I've got to this point, and this podcast is where it's all kind of come together. Like I've always kind of thought, how can I best serve the community of people who want to learn Arabic? How can I best get into their phone and into their space where I can help them? And I think this podcast is it. really. Like I'm just so pumped about it. Like I'm so excited about it. So, yeah, so that's kind of where we've come to now. That's why we're at this point now. So before we end, inshallah, I'll just kind of give you guys a heads up as to what the following episodes are going to be about. Because as I say, at the moment we're going to be doing weekly. The next probably 3 or 4 episodes will be weekly, and then perhaps when we come into October, we'll start doing daily, inshallah, when I'm a bit more settled, and that's the objective. So episode 1. Episode we're going to do next week is about gender in Arabic, and like all modern discussions about anything to do with gender in Arabic, it's absolutely mental. That's a lot of my students are familiar with me saying. We'll run over a concept, and you'll just think, why on earth in Arabic do they do it like that? And I'll need to just say it's absolutely mental, but yeah. That's just how it is. So sometimes in learning Arabic, it requires the student to accept rather than to interrogate a lot of the time. Because sometimes things just are the case for a reason that is not beneficial to question so much, because it's not going to change. The fact that in Arabic they write from right to left rather than left to right, it's not going to change. We don't need to try to, through conjecture, just make up a reason like, oh, the right side is more sacred, so you should start on the right side. It's that's not the primary reason. The primary reason all you need to know is that it does. Yeah, so learn it and try to accept it, and that way you just move forward much quicker as a student. So there are a lot of things like that, when going over gender in the Arabic language. So I thought it would be an interesting place to start. Be an interesting first lesson for us to do, and that's an example of it's actually content. We're not just talking about theory of Arabic. There's actually a lot of Arabic language examples in it. The student of Arabic will get as much out of this as they would out of an actual tutorial. Even though the tone of this, you can kind of already tell is a little bit more relaxed and a bit more conversational, but it will absolutely still be packed with sentences and grammar that you absolutely need to learn. So it's just quite a nice tone. It's quite a nice tone for learning for the student and also for me as the teacher. The next episode after that is going to be about saying to be in Arabic. Because there is a verb to be in Arabic, the verb kana, but kana has a few other jobs. Kana does a few other things, and there are other ways of saying to be as well. We think the verb to be, saying someone is something, that should be one of the most clear and obvious things in any language, but unfortunately in Arabic, the things that you would normally expect to be able to teach kids and be simple lessons, like saying something is something, or talking about colours or numbers, are grammatically the most complicated things in the Arabic language, so that's just something we've got to deal with. But got a whole lesson on saying to be, inshallah. That'll be the second episode. Let's have a look at the third episode. Third episode will be how to build sentences. There are a few different ways of building sentences. You can build sentences in Arabic without verbs. You can't do that in English, but in Arabic you can. And so we'll run through that. All 3 of those lessons are the kinds of lessons that have tons of grammar, tons of vocabulary, tons of sentences. And really, even if you are a little bit more advanced, you've been learning Arabic for a year or something, I think there will still be benefits in it for you. There'll be good revision for you. There'll probably be new vocabulary for you. So I think it is, they are good standalone lessons, and they are lessons that, no matter your current level or inputs, I think there are things in it that will benefit you, inshallah. And then perhaps the 4th episode, bi'idhnillah, with Allah's permission, that will be the episode when I have a guest on board. So I have a couple of guests lined up already. I've already had a conversation with a few brothers who, one brother, as I said, is one of my students and has been my student for a little while. Another one is a guy who I went to university with, who is a few years above me in the Arabic language. Another one is a guy who works at Safar Publications. I don't know if you know. There's a Safar Academy. There's a few of them in London, actually. And the head of their Islamic studies books, he's actually a friend of mine. So we're going to have him as well on board, inshallah, to come and share his Arabic language learning journey with you, because he's better than me. Like, he's phenomenal. He's a phenomenal Arabic speaker and phenomenally knowledgeable in the Arabic language and Arabic literature, mashallah. So it'd be really nice to be able to share his knowledge with you. So that is everything for this episode. For this first introduction episode, that is everything that I have to share with you for today, unfortunately. So I'll have to bid you a very warm and heartfelt ma'a salama. But just rounding off, have a look at the show notes for this. If you're listening to this episode on Stitcher or on iTunes or SoundCloud or Spotify, doesn't matter. Have a look into the show notes and check out my website, inshallah. Obviously, you're always welcome to drop me an email, arabicwithsam@gmail.com. And obviously, I'm available on Instagram and Facebook if you want to message me or DM me or whatever. You're very, very welcome to. Very welcome to ask questions, ask me to cover certain things in the podcast, or just any other comments or anything else you'd like to say, inshallah. So thank you so much for lending me your ear and giving me your time to listen to this podcast today. And I really, really look forward to joining you for the first episode of actual real Arabic language lessons, actually real Arabic content, which will be starting next week. I really look forward to seeing you guys then. Hope you have a really good week, and I'll catch you guys later. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.